What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, October 1st, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have a lot to talk about today. In fact, I got a lot of news to catch up on from the last few days. So it may be a while before we open the phone lines because I really do want to clear out this list and get some of this stuff reported out to you here. Mike is in our control room. He's twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble. So let's get on into it. This has been a development regarding the Burisma Gas Holdings Corporation of Ukraine. They have admitted in court proceedings that they did, in fact, bribe then U.S. Vice President Joseph Biden and his son, Hunter Biden. The only issue left is how much the bribes were. Burisma disputes a claim that the bribes amounted to $900,000. There are indications it may have been even more money. So that is definitely going to put a new wrinkle in terms of the presidential campaign here. Now, James Comey has been testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee. He started yesterday, and he testified under oath that he didn't know anything at all about the dossier author Christopher Steele's sources, and said that old standby excuse that we hear so much in Washington, D.C. He has no memory. He doesn't remember, can't recall. What is it about Washington, D.C. that everybody has such a poor memory? And why do we keep appointing people with such faulty memories to high positions? That's what I want to find out about now. Anyway, this was a huge whopper by Comey. He used to run the country's premier law enforcement agency, or modern-day American Gestapo, depending upon your point of view. Christopher Steele's primary source, Igor Danchenko, was a Russian spy and deemed to be a threat to national security. And they took that dossier and they ran with it, and of course it was completely discredited, and they still used it to get warrants from the FISA court for Trump and various other people here. Trump is now calling for the arrest of former FBI Director James Comey, following comments that Comey made about the Russia investigation before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Comey appeared in front of the committee yesterday to take questions on his handling of the FBI's role in the Russia investigation. Replying to a tweet from DC journalist Paul Sperry, who noted that Comey had said the investigation had been done by the book, Trump tweeted yesterday afternoon that Comey should be arrested on the spot. Now, over at the CIA, pardon me, Director Haspel is personally blocking the declassification of their Russiagate documents. And Federalist co-founder Sean Davis reports that CIA Director Gina Haspel is blocking the release of documents which will show what actually happened with Russiagate. He said, this isn't just a scandal about Democratic projection. This is a scandal about what was a coup planned against the incoming administration at the highest levels. And I can report here tonight that these declassifications that have come out, those weren't easy to get out, and there are far more waiting to get out. This on the Tucker Carlson show last night. Unfortunately, those releases and declassifications, according to multiple sources I've talked to, are being blocked by Gina Haspel, who herself was the main link between Washington and London. Okay, now, you remember a while back, there was this big stink over the Mueller investigation where they were ordered to turn over all their government cell phones, and somehow they accidentally got erased. Something like 31 phones, I think it was. It's come on out now that the iPhones owned by the government are routinely backed up. And the indications are that the government may, in fact, have everything that was on those phones. So that's going to be embarrassing to some people. Getting onto the area of election fraud and why we should be concerned about November 3rd, multiple memory sticks and a laptop used to program the voting machines in Philadelphia have been stolen from a city warehouse. The equipment appeared to be taken this week. Officials immediately began checking to make sure none of the voting machines had been compromised, while also working to contain the fallout for fear of how Donald Trump and his allies might use the news to cast doubt on the integrity of the city's elections. I think that horse has already left the barn here. Many details surrounding the incident remained unclear Wednesday afternoon, including exactly how the equipment was taken, whether there were any suspects, and details on how the missing technology might be used. Officials said there are multiple levels of security to prevent the equipment from being used maliciously, and a police investigation is ongoing. We hope. All righty. Associated Press has issued new guidance for reporters to cover up leftist violence. And they're basically saying things like don't use the word riot, use the word disturbance, various other ways of softening the impact of what's being reported. So you've got these violent left-wing kooks roaming the streets of American City for months, terrorizing people, murdering Trump supporters, beating people to a pulp, shooting police officers, and assaulting people in their vehicles. But you wouldn't know any of this if you consume news exclusively from the corporate media, because the corporate media doesn't want you to know about it. And apparently they really think they succeeded, or we wouldn't have had that ridiculous exchange Tuesday night about white supremacists being behind all the violence. Okay, remember a while ago when 2 Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department deputies were shot in this ambush attack in Compton? This happened on September 13th. And they have finally arrested a suspect. He's a gang member, Deontay Lee Murray, and he's charged with the attempted murder of 2 LA County Sheriff's deputies in the ambush shooting. So they finally managed to track the guy down. All righty. Getting into COVID-19 here, Fox News, conservative media, and independent media get it wrong when reporting CDC fatality data. They're off by 2 orders of magnitude. And if you click on that story at whatreallyhappened.com, you'll see a screenshot from Fox News where they are. Somebody forgot when you go from percentage to real numbers, there's an additional 2 zeros in there that you have to take account for. So once again, the mathematical idiocy and scientific ignorance of Fox News has emerged to push totally fake news about COVID-19 fatalities, wildly misreporting the CDC's latest data on COVID-19. All righty. Now, Dr. Yeadon, who's a Pfizer executive, he decries false positives in the testing programs, which have been a real problem. And for the second wave, he says it's a fraud. Now, how many experts who haven't been compromised do you need to hear before you believe the truth? And what's that old saying? It's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Okay, the Washington Post has admitted school openings have not caused widespread outbreaks of COVID-19. All right, getting over to the vaccine trial participants, 2 of them have come down with what's called myelitis, transverse myelitis. And it turns out it's actually a fairly common vaccine injury. So and Oxford University are trying to downplay this because it caused their clinical trials in 5 countries to come to a screeching halt earlier in September. But it is a known adverse reaction to vaccines. Now, the current vaccine is being developed with $1.2 billion of American taxpayer dollars and $750 million from 2 global health organizations backed by Bill Gates. After a British participant was given a second dose of the vaccine, she experienced the very serious adverse event, transverse myelitis, or TM, which is associated with muscle weakness, paralysis, pain, and problems with the bladder and bowels. 2/3 of those who have it will remain permanently disabled. AstraZeneca also disclosed long after the fact that the September break was actually the second time they had to stop their study. All right, the COVID-19 phase 3 vaccine trial participants are reporting day-long migraines and fever. European press reports earlier indicated that the EU's pharma regulator is preparing to expedite approval of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, even as FDA expands its investigation into the COVID-19 vaccine's phase 3 trials. As the World Health Organization, Bill Gates, Dr. Fauci, and the global healthcare establishment work with their allies in the press to try and convince as many people as possible to agree to take the vaccine once one is approved, more alarming reports are emerging in the mainstream press about issues with the phase 3 trials. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, over at Manchester Metropolitan University, students are being threatened with police action if they didn't remove signs complaining about the lockdown placed in the windows in their halls of residence. Now, students across the city have been placed under a new 2-week lockdown, meaning they're under de facto house arrest, cannot leave their homes, and are forced to rely on food deliveries. Some reacted to the restrictions by placing signs in their windows that said, "Help us," and Her Majesty's Prison MMU. Another sign said, "Mental health comes first. Let us out." Okay, we had a caller call in early. We're going to go ahead and take the call. Mary in Virginia, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How are you and Claire?
We're doing fine. Thank you very much.
Yes, love you both.
Thank you.
Can you give my kudos to John,
Okay.
your boss?
Yes.
And just tell from me, Dinah Washington, what a difference a day makes, and tell him thank you from me. And I will be a regular donator.
Good.
The day I die.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much. Okay, turning to the California wildfires, they're still going on. They've been going on so long, they've fallen off the news cycle. 3 dead, nearly 100,000 evacuate as 2 massive wildfires explode in Northern California. Apparently, it's hitting the wine country now. A couple of towns have been completely destroyed here. The Glass Fire has consumed more than 45,000 acres of land. The Zog Fire has burned 40,000 acres. Both are 0% contained. Some 1,500 firefighters continue to battle the wildfires that have been ravaging Napa's famous wine region. So you can count on the price of California wines to skyrocket in the near future. Some notable wineries, such as Chateau Boswell and a portion of the 13th century style winery Castello di Amorosa, have been lost to the blazes, which reached the fringes of Santa Rosa, the biggest town in Sonoma County. It's a complete total loss, said Jim Sullivan, Castello di Amorosa's vice president of marketing and PR. Okay, now this is where we're getting a little bit weird here. There is an environmental professor out in California at Santa Clarita University, and his name is Ted Gruden. He earned his PhD in environmental science from the University of California at Berkeley, and he wrote an op-ed in the Earth Island Journal last week in which he claims white supremacy is the cause of wildfires and hurricanes. And, you know, it's the white supremacy over nature which has brought environmental calamity upon us. Well, Tad, I hate to tell you this, but there were wildfires long before people were around. White, black, tan, beige, peach, taupe, mauve, whatever color here. All right, turning to the international news and turning to the Azerbaijani Armenian War, Turkish F-16s are now entering the game. Armenia continues to threaten to use these Iskander missiles. As of September 29th, the Azerbaijani advance in the Nagorno-Karabakh region struck the Armenian defense, and Azerbaijani forces were not able to achieve any military breakthroughs. Armenian troops withdrew from several positions in the Talash area and east of Fuzuli. So they're continuing the fights. They're rejecting the possibility of peace talks. They're rejecting pressure to hold peace talks after fighting erupted in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh enclave. The conflict could be spreading further as both sides have accused one another of firing directly into each other's territory as of Tuesday, which is a bad thing. So Azeri President Ilham Aliyev spoke to Russian media, ruled out the possibility of any talks. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan told the same media outlet the negotiations were not possible while the fighting continues. Since fighting started on Sunday, dozens have been reported killed, hundreds wounded, with clashes continuing for the third day. It prompted the UN to convene for emergency talks. Observers noted this is the heaviest fighting the enclave has seen since the ceasefire was declared in 1994. Okay, now then, a while back there were accusations that Turkey was sending Syrian fighters into the fight. Turkey denied it. Well, apparently on Wednesday, The Guardian published a story that said at least 3 Syrian opposition fighters were killed in Nagorno-Karabakh, where Armenia and Azerbaijan are fighting. Multiple media outlets have cited sources in northern Syria that said a Turkish security company offered Syrian fighters around $1,000 a month to travel to Azerbaijan. The Guardian spoke with the families of Syrian fighters who were reported to have been killed. And one man, Omar Abdo, is the cousin of a slain fighter named Mohammed Sha'alan. Abdo said he was contacted by members of the Hamza division on Tuesday who told him of his cousin's death. Okay, Armenia has published photos of wreckage it says is a Sukhoi 25 warplane shot down by a Turkish F-16 jet. So this is getting really serious, a lot of heavy equipment involved. Okay. So Armenia posted these pictures on an online government platform Wednesday of the wreckage of a plane it said was a Sukhoi 25. Turkey and Azerbaijan have denied Yerevan's claim that a Turkish F-16 fighter shot down the Armenian plane, killing the pilot. On Wednesday, Armenia's defense ministry named the pilot as Major Valery Danilin. Okay. The Armenian Defense Ministry says the Karabakh forces downed 3 Azerbaijan planes today. Tensions between Armenia and Azerbaijan have escalated since Sunday, with the sides accusing each other of being responsible for the aggression along the line of contact in Nagorno-Karabakh. The armed forces of the unrecognized Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh have downed 2 Azerbaijani planes and a helicopter, according to the Armenian Defense Ministry, thereby reporting overall 3 planes allegedly downed in the area since Thursday morning. Now, Turkey is denying the allegations that it shot down the Sukhoi 25. And Armenian officials said that the Sukhoi 25 from its Air Force was shot down by a Turkish F-16 that took off from Azerbaijan. If true, it's a serious escalation by Turkey, which has pledged support for Azerbaijan in the conflict. Azerbaijan is saying that 12 Azeri civilians have killed, 35 wounded by Armenian fire. This is a very, very serious situation that's going on over there. And it's one of 4 flashpoints from which World War III could actually erupt. Because if Turkey is coming in on one side, Russia's going to come in on the other side. Turkey invokes NATO, and then everybody gets to play out there in the desert. All right. Tehran, meanwhile, is rejecting media allegations that it is transferring arms to Armenia via Iran. It's dismissing the reports as lies by some media outlets and says the movement of trucks and transit of conventional civilian goods between the Islamic Republic of Iran and neighboring countries is going on as usual. However, he said, in addition to closely monitoring and controlling the movements and transits of goods to other countries, Iran does not allow the use of its soil for the transfer of weapons and ammunition. Over in Iraq, things are heating up there. We mentioned before that the U.S. State Department is livid over repeat rocket and mortar attacks on both the U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad and the high secure green zone in which the American compound is located. This resulted in U.S. officials signaling at the start of this week they're mulling shuttering the embassy altogether and calling all diplomatic personnel home. Multiple reports say preparations for just such a retreat are underway, which strongly suggests bigger U.S. military intervention will follow. Oh, goody, another Iraq war. That's when things were getting boring. Not only was there weekend fire on the U.S. Embassy area, but a Monday attack on Baghdad's international airport, which also hosts Western military advisory forces, killed 5 Iraqi civilians when a rocket slammed into their house on the edge of the airport. The U.S. is demanding Iraq immediately act against the militias. The State Department has declared itself outraged over the Monday rocket attack at the Baghdad airport, and the U.S. is demanding Iraq take immediate action against the militias. U.S. officials say they consider the militias a danger and expect Iraq to fight them, even though in practice these militias are part of Iraq's own security forces. Iraq has struggled to exert control over the militias for years. Now, according to Russia's defense minister, Shoigu, Russia is responsible for wiping out ISIS in Syria. And he made this statement on the 5th anniversary of Moscow's intervention. And he said, basically, thanks to Russian forces, the Islamic State in Syria has been defeated. And Shoigu claimed more than 133,000 terrorists had been killed in the country over the past 5 years. Okay, we got to take a break for commercial, and we'll be back with more news after these two words. Welcome back to our show here, and a friendly reminder, a perpetual reminder, that Republic Broadcasting Network is in a perpetual fundraiser, and we really need your help to keep doing what we're doing. We don't have any large corporations or conservative billionaires pouring all kinds of money over us. Nobody in independent media is getting rich doing any of this. And we really do need your help. The only way we're going to stop the big money influence over our country is for the small money to unite together in the cause of restoring our republic. So with that in mind, a reminder that the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And remember, there's no such thing as too small a donation. Okay, well, apparently we have a lot of people who didn't hear at the top of the show that I wanted to hold off on the phone calls to get some more news done. But the lines are loading up here. So let's go to Leila in Canada. Boy, it's been a long time since we heard from you. What's on your mind?
Actually, I haven't been able to listen to your show today, Mike, but I was listening to yesterday's recording, and there was a guy on complaining about the fact that American weapons were being used to help the Azerbaijanis?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Azerbaijanis are Muslim, and he was raising this issue of Muslim versus Christian. Well, yes. I don't know. Has anybody identified the instigation for this recent battle? I mean, it just seemed to come out of nowhere. Has anyone?
Well, it was a breakdown in the 1994 ceasefire. I mean, Armenia and Azerbaijan have been, arguing over this Nagorno area for a long time. Nagorno itself sees itself as an independent republic, but is as yet unrecognized by the other governments on planet Earth.
Well, isn't Nagorno also largely Armenian anyway? And isn't it within the under the control of the Armenians? But this is not really a Muslim-Christian issue. It's more a matter of the benefit to Israel. I mean, like with any crime, you always have to ask, when you look at the cause or the suspect, who benefits by this?
Yes.
Now, in the past, when I used to call in, I used to insist that when against Arab violence was occurring, there was always Mizrahi Israelis sent out by the Mossad as instigators. There was no doubt in my mind, since the Rothschilds were in Baku, Azerbaijan, that is where they made their wealth in the oil, along with the Nobel brothers, who of the Nobel laureates. They were all working together, extracting. Well, it didn't have to work very hard. You could pick the oil out of off the ground in Baku, Azerbaijan. So the Azerbaijanis have always been very friendly with Israel because the Rothschilds made their wealth there, and the Rothschilds Israel is the headquarters for the Rothschild financial empire and all their corporate alliances. So let's look at who benefits from this. Now, Armenia, throughout history, if you look at ancient history, has always been beat up by one empire after another.
Yes.
So it's unfair. I mean, there were a lot of Armenians amongst the Christian Palestinians, Armenian Orthodox. I think the majority of Armenians are Orthodox of the Eastern Rite, so they would they're not Catholics. So there's a lot of there's not very much sympathy for the Eastern Orthodox Church or the Antiochian Church or whatever. But the same guy also seems to forget that Bill Clinton was in charge when U.S. weapons were used to bomb the Christians of Serbia in order to assist Kosovo.
Yes.
Yeah, let's keep, and again, what was the purpose? I still maintain the reason that Yugoslavia was broken up was so that they could enable the migrants from Africa and the Middle East who were being pushed out like herded herded cattle rampaging through Europe in order to get out of the Middle East, to clear the Middle East, in order to make it easier and to create chaos and factions, not only within the Middle East, but to create chaos and factions that would fight one another within the Western world. Because now COVID, let's face it, is part of the globalization plan. We have now, in the U.S., it's enshrined in the Constitution, the right, the freedom of assembly. Well, now they've used coronavirus as an excuse to withdraw the right to freedom of assembly. Everybody is imprisoned in their homes. It's no coincidence they're using the term lockdown, because we're all like naughty, bad prisoners. And we're all, being imprisoned in home. And they even want to track us on our cell phones. It's almost, we might as well have an ankle, a bracelet around our ankle, so they could track where we go. And
they're doing that down in Australia.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. But the next step is going to be, what are they going to be putting in the vaccine? I mean, there's nanotechnology. They could actually put anything in the vaccines that apparently they're going to make mandatory in some states.
Leila, stay on the line. I'm going to put you on hold. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back with more phone calls. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Leila in Canada. And Leila, I think you had one more thing you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, I think that the vaccines are going to be the final stage of turning people into robotic and totally compliant, terrified individuals who no longer know how to think and will be obedient. I mean, they need robots on this planet, but they haven't got the energy sources for robots, whereas humans have the mitochondrion where we generate our own energy. So the best thing is you just remove the capacity to think and question, and then you turn them into your army of robots. And I think the vaccine is going to be made mandatory, and that's going to be the ultimate step in turning us into just a planet of subservient and utterly compliant and unquestioning obedient puppets and robots.
Yep.
That's my guess. That would be my projection of what the plan is. Anyway, take care, Mike. It's been months since I've been able to listen to your show, and it's good to see you're back out there.
Yes.
Still out there, I should say.
Still out here, pushing as hard as I can. All right. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mo in Florida. Hello, Mo. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Michael. I'll try to be quick here because you say you got a lot of people waiting on the phone. So, first of all, that's a smart lady.
Yes.
I mean, she should have her own show. But, I was just thinking, I know it's easy to Monday morning quarterback with the debates. But do you remember the situation with MacArthur and the crossing the parallel with Truman, and he called him back?
Yes.
I was just thinking, last night, and when I thought was just extremely rude and disgusting, no matter what you think of Trump, that, Biden told him to shut up. If Trump would have just stopped and said, listen, Mr. Biden, or Vice President Biden, whatever you want to call him, I don't care what you think of Donald Trump, but don't you ever tell the President of the United States to shut up again. That would have just ended the show right there. He had a perfect opportunity. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know that would have gone over that well with the viewing audience, which, by the way, was about 73 million, not quite the 100 million they were expecting. I think Trump needs to avoid anything that makes him look tyrannical and dictatorial. Biden, of course, stepped into that when he said, I am the Democratic Party. And I think he alienated a lot of the party with that statement.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're separating the Truman was saying, I don't care what you think. He told MacArthur, I don't care. MacArthur showed up late for the meeting with all his medals. Yes. He thought he had the populace behind him. He was this, general that thought he didn't have to listen to his commander in chief. And he called him in his office and he says, listen, he was 15 minutes late or whatever. And he said, listen, I don't care what you think of Harry S. Truman, but don't you ever keep your commander in chief waiting again. And
yes.
And then he fired him. Then he fired. His own words were after that, he kissed my ass. I mean, Trump's saying, hey, listen, I don't care what you can think what you want about Donald Trump, but don't you ever tell the President of the United States to shut up. I mean, that would have just, that wouldn't have been.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I think you're right.
Yeah, and one other thing real quick, Mike, I noticed Mnuchin was wearing one of the face masks with the Star of David on it. So what do you think of that, Layla?
Yeah.
It just makes me kind of sick, because not the flag, Star of David on his mask, golden star. So whatever you think about Israel, I mean, I thought it was America first, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, Mike, you said you were in a hurry and I got a lot of calls, so I'll let you go and thank you for taking my call.
Well, thank you very much for the call. We're going to switch over to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Oh, yeah. Aloha, Michael. Can you hear me okay, Michael, or should I take my phone off speaker?
I think you probably ought to take it off speaker so that people can understand you more clearly.
Okay. Yeah, then I have a little trouble hearing you, but I'll take it off speaker here.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael, I, too, was very, very much impressed with Layla. Boy, what a great caller. But, what she said explained something to me. Are you familiar with John Batchelor? He has the John Batchelor talk show. He has a lot of guests. And are you familiar with John Batchelor?
I've heard the name. I'm not really that familiar with him.
Oh, yeah, back here in Boston on WRKO. He comes on every weekday night. Yeah, from like 10 to 1 in the morning and everything. It's a long show, and but anyways, he's a rabid Zionist. I guess he's out of New York City, John Batchelor, and he has a real popular show. And I guess he's a rabid Zionist, but he's been kissing up to the Azerbaijanis. He's connected with all the leadership, the leaders of Azerbaijan. Not too long ago, he was over there broadcasting his show from Azerbaijan. So, anyways, Layla was saying that the Israelis and Azerbaijan have this thing going on, kind of like alliance.
That seems to support it, yes.
Yeah. Now, I guess right after I hung up with you yesterday, I looked in my smartphone and I found Bob Schieffer, is who I was trying to think of.
Yeah,
and Mike said
emailed that in.
Huh?
A lot of people emailed that in, but I didn't get to it on yesterday's show. But yeah, it was Bob Schieffer.
Yeah, he was such a great guy. He was just so even-tempered. He always had a pleasant look on his face, not like a sourpuss like that Chris Wallace. And I was looking. He's got all these. He's one thing. He's a legend in some organization, and what do they call him? Anyways, he's got all these awards, all these awards and everything. From these journalistic, I can't think of the words right now, but just all these honors and everything as a journalist. But he was so good, Bob. He was such a likable guy, and where's Bob Schieffer when we need him? But you know that Mike Wallace, that sourpuss. Why didn't that? I don't even like call. Huh?
You mean Chris Wallace?
I mean, Chris Wallace, Mike Wallace's son there, Chris Wallace and everything. I don't even want to call him we don't know whether these people are Jews or not. They say they're Jews, but but one thing we do know is they're Judeo-anti-Christians. But why isn't that Judeo-anti-Christian? Why didn't he ask Trump if Trump will disavow and renounce the Jewish supremacists? Huh?
Yes.
I'd like to hear Trump renounce the Jewish supremacists. No, Mike?
Well, because, Chris is very much against Donald Trump, and he wanted to try and trap him with the white supremacy argument, which Trump tried to evade as best as he could. And the media is out there saying he refuses to denounce white supremacist violence, which is not exactly what he said. They're still trying to push that one out there. And again, the Democratic strategy for November is to create as much racial tension as they can, and in order to harvest the black vote for the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, I've said, like on Fallon's show on Saturday morning and everything, I point out, this is what I really believe, Mike, that only white people can destroy the white race. only white people can destroy white America in the final analysis. And this so-called law enforcement, sometimes I refer to them as pigs, but I know you have a nice show, and I don't want to detract from your show by necessarily using that kind of language. But these race trade law enforcement, they're always on the side of our enemies, and they're also training all of our enemies. Up here in Boston now, I lived in Roxbury in the black section of Boston for about 5 years, up until about 5 years ago. And you wouldn't, somebody should have me on as a guest. Somebody should really hear my story. But anyways, these I have to call the police all the time, every day. I have to call the police. This went on, and but these white police now in these cities like Boston and New York and Philly and everything, what they're doing, they've trained so many non-white cops that you know 2 or 3 or 4 cops show up, and there'll be one white cop, and then there'll be an Asian or a black and a Hispanic and everything, and these white cops. Now that these white cops have trained all our maybe potential enemies of white people, these white cops are bending over backwards in front of their Chinese colleagues and their black colleagues and their Hispanic colleagues to prove to them that they're not showing white privilege. Half the time they're actually arresting the white victims of black on white crime and everything. I saw people getting what do they used to call that? That where they come up behind and punch somebody in the temple, a knockout game.
Yeah, the knockout game.
These blacks punching people, and the cops show up, and the black is he called me the N-word. And the pigs wind up actually arresting the victim of the crime. It's insane, but like I say, I'll close with this, Mike. But we can only be destroyed by white people and this white femme scum, these white race trader pigs, and all our enemies. I'll say it again: all our enemies are associated with the color blue. The blue states, the blue mayors, the blue governors, and these blue race trader pigs, and ultimately these blue helmeted United Nations troops, and that damn Israeli flag with the blue Star of David, and the 2 blue rivers, and I'll close with this one last statement, Mike. It's a little play on words. Maybe I'm being a white polemicist when I say this, but our founding fathers, the original patriots in Boston, okay? Their struggle was with Great Britain and the United Kingdom. Okay?
Yes.
Our original patriots back in 1775, 1776. Their struggle was with Great Britain and the United Kingdom. But I want to tell you, our struggle is with Great Satan and the United Nations. It's not with Great Britain and the United Kingdom. Now we're up against Great Satan and the United Nations. And with that, I wish you all Godspeed, because you're going to need it.
Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Judy in Minnesota. Hello, Judy. Thank you for waiting. What's on your mind today?
Thank you, Michael. I am so happy to be able to talk to you. I've been a listener for 8 years. Your voice is the last I listen to every night before I go to bed. And Monday through Friday, that is.
Yes, I was going to say.
But I would like to know if anyone there, your caller audience, or you noticed that there was no American flag on stage during the debate on Tuesday night.
I did notice that, and more than that, I noticed that the backdrop for the candidates was from the Declaration of Independence, and right at eye level, right parallel with the heads of the 2 candidates, was the most important line in the Declaration of Independence, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. And I was thinking, whoa, talk about irony right there.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I just thought that was very interesting, so I thought I'd bring that up.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I just thought also that maybe some of your callers might have some insight into that we don't know.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Bruce in Texas. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hello, Mike. Hey, this may not seem as serious a topic as some of the others we've heard discussed, but I think it's a reflection on society, and actually it may actually be of importance when you think about it. I remember Larry Bird playing basketball, and then you had Michael Jordan, and
Yes.
each year, you know, these are superstars. They're very talented people. They had drive and they had discipline to win, you know. And every year the ratings would go up, the sport became more popular, and now you have LeBron James, who some say is probably the best. I'll argue that between Michael Jordan. That's for a sports show. But he is a superstar, and I expected a fall in the ratings, but the overnights came out. It was reported on Yahoo Sports that the ratings for the Game 1 of the 2020 NBA Finals fell 50% over last year.
Yes.
50%. I hope they learn a lesson here. I mean, maybe they have enough corporate backing to where they just move their money around because they got a social program that they want to push, and ratings doesn't mean a whole lot to them. But I hope that's not the case, because if you alienate half the country, your ratings are gonna fall 50%. I think that's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened. You know, sports is supposed to be about sports and not politics, and a lot of people have been very turned off by all of these sports stars, and that's all they are. They're athletes. You know, all of a sudden getting up and lecturing us on whether we should stand or kneel for the national anthem and various other woke issues right now. And that's not why people go to sports. They go to sports to be distracted, to be entertained, to have a good time. And if they're not going to get that, if there's going to be an effort there to make them feel guilty about being who they are, they're not going to show up again.
Yeah, you know, if LeBron James or Colin Kaepernick or anybody, you know, they say what they want on their own time, start a foundation, run for office, all I care. And to me, I'd still watch them, but when they push it in your face like this, and it's not just the athletes now. Last year, or maybe 2 years ago, it was. Now it's Black Lives Matter on the court, Black Lives Matter before the game, and then you have these commercials from Madison Avenue, which push race mixing. And I think, you know, that should be an individual's choice, and it should reflect the population. But if you watch the commercials, you think every couple was a black man and a white woman. It's so ridiculous, and I hope it all crashes and burns on them. You know, or at least
I think it's in the process of doing that, and you know, we're seeing the same thing. You know, coming out of the entertainment industry as a whole, where everything that's coming on out, it's no longer about fun and entertainment and distraction and good story. Everything seems to have a lecture embedded in it about how we should all be woke, and you know, black people are oppressed and white people are the oppressors, and you know, they're all bad, and so forth and so on. And again, that's not why we tune in, and that's probably one of the reasons why the entertainment industry's ratings are falling. Anyway, Bruce, we got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We have more callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I just want to, I'm glad that Layla is back, you know?
Yes,
and I'm right with her. You said about the vaccine, what they really want to do. We better be prepared to fight. I wish people would not be so carried away with the race thing. I mean, even some of the callers here, this is just a distraction, okay? Divide and conquer. The real problem is these billionaire controllers who want to rule the world, and basically, like Layla said, make us into robots. And I just want to say a little about the Azerbaijan Armenia thing. It's funny she mentioned Israel being interested in it. What you really got there is basically the Azerbaijani War.
Yes.
Because Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and part of Turkey pretty much made up what, because what was it called? Khazar, the country of Khazar, was actually
Khazaria.
Yeah. I watched this thing, Kings and Generals, on YouTube. It's a series. They show different regions of certain people and all that. And, you know, because there's Khazarians are actually Turkic people who came from Siberia originally, and evidently they were like a buffer between Islam and Christianity for a while.
Yes.
They kept the Islamic invasion from going into Europe from the south, from the east, southeast, and a lot of them did convert to Judaism. But as the empire started to,
they were ordered to. They were ordered to. The king of Khazaria, in order to prevent Christian missionaries and Muslim missionaries from trying to convert his country, he made Judaism the official religion of Khazaria, imported a bunch of rabbis, and said, "You are all Jewish now."
That's right. You saw that. You saw the same thing then, right? Kings and generals.
No, I read a book a while back on the same subject.
Okay. Because basically, that's what I said, kings and generals. And he actually said that a lot of the powers that be of both the Muslims and the Christians actually wanted them to be Jews because I guess it was kind of a buffer. But as it split up,
they could trade. They could trade. The Christians wouldn't trade with the Muslims, but they would trade with the Jews. The Muslims would trade with the Jews. I mean, that's where Khazaria and their Jews learned how to be merchants and how to make a profit. They were sitting, in an absolutely perfect economic location.
Yeah, well, the actual original Jews, though, they really pretty much did stuff like that in the Middle East, like along trade routes and stuff like that. Didn't they? Like, because pretty much that's what the Mediterranean is, a big trade route.
Yes.
Even before Aryans even became Jews. But the thing is, a lot of these people now have split up, and become Muslims and Christians, and they got all kinds of feuds going now. Okay, and that's what, under the Soviet Union, it was controlled. But I can understand Russia not wanting them under their control anyway. So, because look at all the problems.
Okay, Mark, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I got to put you on hold. We're going to take a break for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 2 after these few words. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2, we're talking with Mark in North Carolina. And Mark, you had one more thing you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I grew up in Upper Manhattan, and there were a lot of people of Greek and Armenian ancestry, many of them like first generation. And all I remember is how they hated the Turks. Oh man, they hated Turks. They hated Turks. And I guess this is all now. This is a pot that's brewing now, and I guess I can understand in a way why the Soviet Union maybe did break up, because they didn't want to be responsible. Once they got rid of communism, they didn't want to be responsible for having to keep the peace in that place. You know what I mean? And if you notice, the United States and Russia actually in the same side right now. They're basically backing Armenia, which is and France also. But this has all the markings of a possible cluster. You know what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. You take it easy, Mike. Right?
All right. Thanks an awful lot. Thanks for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I got shut up yesterday. We had a power outage here, but listen, I wanted to just add something briefly to what.
One of those rolling blackouts?
No, actually, this one was not. But it's California's so pathetic. It might have been. But Mark was talking about the Azerbaijan and Armenia, and it's interesting. The Armenians, several years back, you may recall, the 1915 horrible Holocaust, where there's several million Armenians died at the hands of the Turks, and during the First World War, and they've been trying to basically get this designated as a genocide, Holocaust, if you will. And,
of course,
for years,
Israel is screaming intellectual property lawsuits.
That's right, exactly. Israel wouldn't have it, and the Jews wouldn't have it because they wouldn't recognize anybody else's misfortune if it had competed with their own.
Yes.
And so it's interesting that they're now backing Azerbaijan. But I wanted to say that about the debates. That on full display there was how controlled we are. Here we have two candidates who are rabidly pro-Israel, right?
Yes.
One who at least is not selling out his own has enough justice in his heart to see that this whole thing about white supremacists is bullshit, is bullcrap. And the other one absolutely will not. And it was interesting that after 110 days of steady rioting and burning and looting and beatings and dragging people out of cars, as you talked about earlier on that one article, that Chris Wallace, who is, by the way, very Jewish, as was his father, very pro-Israel, managed to pull up Charlottesville, which itself was an Antifa thing, and itself, just like they're saying, was now all these riots are mostly peaceful. Well, back then they pinned it on white supremacists, and it was not. It was ginned up by Antifa back then as well. But and then he Biden comes out and says, well, Antifa, it's an intellectual concept. It's an ideology, and it's not an organization. And Trump
Hillary's calling it a theological concept.
Yes, yeah, that's their fallback thing. When, of course, we have the people distributing the weapons and preloading the bricks and transporting the people from one site to another. And there's an organization. And by the way, you go to Antifa and they link with Biden.
Yes,
right to his presidential campaign thing. You go to their website, it goes right to Biden. And so it's what they are is a democratically backed and deep state backed terrorist group.
Yes,
Antifa is, and obviously the white supremacy thing is just another way. Of course, they're controlled. Look who their donors are. Look who their leaders are. They're all Jews, and look who their targets are, and look who the media and the Democratic Party is able to deflect and is trying to deflect. I think unsuccessfully. I'm thinking this time on white people who have had nothing to do with these riots, other than the fact that there's some communists there, right? That are doing it. But all this is Zionist Jewish control, from the media and the moderator, from the Democratic Party and their leadership, to our own guy who only is just 1 degree less than Biden.
Yes.
And the whole message, and it's all, the only difference is that Trump refused to say that white supremacists are behind it. But it's obvious to everybody. And if he had come out and said, that's just complete crap, look who's doing this, and look who Antifa is, and you're taking 110 days of rioting with more damage than any riots in the history of America, and there's no organization behind it. When there's arrests, there's film, there's everything.
Yes.
He would have gained a lot of votes had he said that. I'm hoping it's obvious to everybody out there anyways, but we're totally controlled. I mean, it's again, they
well, not around here.
But they control. But we won't make it, Mike. You and I, and this form of communication, it won't make it if Biden wins. They simply won't. They'll send us to jail. We'll be lucky if we avoid jail. Let me put it to you that way. But we won't be able to say this. But it's right in your face, and the divide and conquer thing that is apparent. That's what they've been doing all along. The bludgeon is Black Lives Matter, is the enraged and misinformed, purposely, black community, misinformed by the Jews, and used as a bludgeon against the whites. And they've been doing it for years to divide and conquer, as Mark just said. They've been doing it for years. In the end, it's all these Zionist Jewish billionaires that own us all, from the Federal Reserve to George Soros to Haim Saban to on and on. 18 of the top 20 donors for the Democrats, the top 5 donors for the Republicans, on and on and on. And that's really what this is all about. And it's interesting just to see the minor deviations, that are here, that are allowed. And thankfully, Trump, there is a minor deviation. We better go with that because that's the best we got.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the phone call, Peter. We're going to let you go and switch over to Steve in West Virginia. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Hey, listen, the guy that calls in from Massachusetts.
Yes.
Dave, I think that's his name.
David,
he
yes.
He can fill in for Chumley on Tennessee Tuxedo. He sounds just like that guy. Anyways.
Now let's refrain from personal attacks, okay? I'm trying to learn from Chris Wallace's mistakes.
Yeah, it's not an attack. It's just his voice sounds the same. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Anyways, real quick here. The thing with Biden and the bar is set so low for him that's all he is. He just exceeded the bar. And what I was going to say is that he's completely faking the senility or whatever they call that. What's that illness?
Dementia.
Associated with it. Yeah.
I can't see any reason for him to be faking that. I think.
Oh, I can because then they can't go after him with the Ukraine and China stuff.
Sure they can.
Money.
Sure they can. I mean, the fact that he's got dementia is no reason not to focus on charisma.
They can't go after him while he's running for president. They're not going to be able to go after him until after the election. So, anyways, if you understand how dementia works, the people they're good in the morning and in the afternoon and late at night they fall apart. So I think the dementia thing's an act, and because they could have picked a way better candidate than him. Bernie Sanders would have done 10 times better than Biden.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Or Tulsi Gabbard.
So why did they pick Biden then?
Because he's going to be easy to control.
Well, Bernie Sanders took a fall. I mean, he threw the fight. He'd be easy to control too.
I don't think he deliberately took a fall. I think he got cheated by Hillary.
You don't think he got? I mean, all of a sudden he's got another $400,000 or $500,000 house, and I think he took a fall on purpose, Mike.
Anyway, I think he was cheated and he was paid off to not complain. That's what I think.
Okay,
anyways,
well, that's the same thing.
Okay, well, Steve, thanks a lot for the phone call. We're loaded up on the phone lines. Let's switch to Fred in Iowa. Hello, Fred. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Divide and conquer. Mark in North Carolina and Peter in Los Angeles covered it more articulately than I probably will. But I would direct the listeners' attention to the banner of RBN to Dr. Ben Carson. Race is being manipulated to create chaos and divide America, and read the whole article. Now, the call screener asked me what I was going to talk about. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
Well, I've got a note here in the little text window saying you wanted to talk about Rome.
Okay. Rome, when the church and the state was together under the Caesars, so at the football stadium, the Coliseum.
Yeah.
What if the gladiators would have got down on their knees and asked for mercy that would have saved a lot of Christians that were slaughtered and fed to the lions and killed for years. What if they
Well,
got down
you're
on their
talking
knees?
about when Nero was doing, when Rome burned down, Nero blamed the Christians for it, and it created a political climate where even if the Christians had begged for mercy, it wasn't going to be forthcoming. So it was rather pointless for them to do so.
Yeah, and what I'm suggesting is, what if the gladiators at the football field, the baseball field, the basketball field, had got down on their knees and asked for mercy for the Christians? It would be possibly quite a change. Okay. The Antifa. Mark in North Carolina and Peter in Los Angeles described it very well. Well, stop this stupid crap, this ignorance of going on and raving about Black Lives Matter. You know, it's set up by the second beast of Revelation, which happens to be a government we're very familiar with, and do something. Am I for violence? For God's sake, no. Am I for dismantling the police? My God, no. But get rid of any corrupt person that takes lives unjustly, if there is a just way to take lives. And I'll leave that to Christ.
Okay.
But atheists probably won't understand this because it's all foolishness to them. But people
not exactly, because there is a great deal of history. If you can sort through some of the dogma, there's some actual history in there that's definitely worth studying. Anyway, Fred, we're going to let you go here and switch over to Joe in Wyoming. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you over the background noise. You're on the air. What's on your mind?
Sorry, I'm driving a truck heading down the road here.
Okay.
Just had a couple things I wanted to chime in here that I've been wanting to get off my chest. And number one is I see a lot of good and bad coming from all of this. From the COVID stuff, from the rioting, from everything. Okay, so the good coming out of it that I can see is the globalists trying to create all of this chaos have also managed to, number one, wake a lot of people up. There's a lot of people that for years and years, you and I and other people have tried to tell them through radio, through YouTube, through anything, any means necessary to try and let them know what was happening. Okay? And they wouldn't listen. Just like when I'm young, I'm a teenager and my dad's trying to tell me something and I just goes in one ear out the other and I don't understand it until I experience it. And so I think what's happening is there's so many people waking up. That's a good thing. And so at the same time, you have all these people that are fearful of everything going on, and so they try to pick a side. So you've got good and bad coming from the pandemic itself.
Yes.
And I think in the end, what's going to happen is you're going to have a very possible revolution between the two. And I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, just because, I mean, you and I both know this was bound to happen at some point.
Yes, sadly.
And I think it's really the only way people are going to wake up. You don't know peace until you've had suffering. And most people in this country, for the most part, have not experienced true suffering.
Well, they're about to.
The reason I say that is because they've had, they're about to. And most people in this country have had access to some sort of food, whether it's fast food, whether it's gardens, whether it's water in the tap, it doesn't matter. access to some sort of nutrition. Where in a lot of other countries, there's people that they go long periods of time without that nutrition. You know what I mean? And so I think people are about to experience
a very cruel death to starve to death.
Yeah, and it's going to wake people up. I think that's the point it's going to have to get to. And it's already happening with them coming out of their comfort zones with all this stuff going on, wearing a mask, worrying about vaccinations, everything. Okay? So number 2 for me that I wanted to talk about is the police situation. Ammon Bundy had a speech a little while ago where he was talking about BLM asking him to speak about defunding the police. Okay, and I actually agreed with him on this point. Police hired by the state are immune. They're never held accountable. If they do it, if they shoot and kill somebody, it's a slap on the wrist, usually with paid leave. Okay, that's state-hired police. So what I think needs to happen is, yes, we need to defund the police. They are, most of them, I shouldn't say most, a lot of them are corrupt. But most of them, if not all of them, are ruled by governors, mayors, people for the state. Okay? They're not held accountable by the people like a sheriff is. So I think we need to get back to a sheriff-run system where they are elected and hire deputies.
I see what you're saying here. All right. Well, Joe, thank you very much. We're going to have to let you go for a break and commercials, and we'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Tom in Utah. Tom, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind today?
We lost Tom.
We lost Tom. Okay, good. Back to the news then.
Actually, he's here now. You just come back.
Oh, Tom, are you there? Hello, Tom, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, good. Well, little gremlin there we were dealing with. What's on your mind today?
There's a little of my sarcasm, but the vaccine is going to be good for the livestock industry. It's going to take millions of gallons of blood and offal to, to culture and to transport those bacterium in the vaccine.
Well, in this case, we're dealing with a virus rather than a bacteria. But you're right. There's definitely going to be a boon in the growth medium.
Yeah, and then of course the refrigeration industry's got a big order. They've got to produce thousands of freezers and refrigerators to keep that stuff from rotting before they stick it in you.
And I'm sure they're going to load it up with all these mercury-based preservatives as well.
Well, those are the preservatives. The real problem is the base itself.
Yes.
Turns your body against any protein structure in that vaccine, triggers the production of antibodies. And so if there's gonadal tissue in that vaccine, it'll turn your body against your own gonads. If you got ovarian tissue in that vaccine, it'll turn, ovarian tissue in that vaccine, it'll turn your body against your own ovaries.
I think that's why we're having an epidemic of peanut anaphylaxis, is they're using peanut oil as a vaccine adjuvant.
Yeah. When you bypass the liver, and the liver doesn't get the opportunity to catabolize those proteins or lipoproteins, then you've got to deal with the antibodies your immune system produces against that foreign material. It's like you, but not you. I mean, this whole thing just drives me cuckoo. In fact, my friend that I was just on the phone with in New Orleans, he's a pathologist there at Tulane. He said, "What in the world's going on here?" And I said, the more I can pump the tissues that are like you into you, the more I turn your body against yourself. You can pick your disease. Pick your autoimmune disease. If that vaccine carries the myelin sheath from the tissue, brain tissue, nerve tissues of the animals that it's derived from, it'll turn your body against your own myelin sheath, and then you get to have MS.
Yeah,
every autoimmune disease is
that makes a lot of sense.
If that vaccine media's got pancreatic tissue, then you can turn your body against your own pancreas, and that's diabetes type 1.
Well, what a moneymaker for the medical industrial complex.
Yeah, we have the solution to the problem. Oh, wait a minute, we created the problem.
But they will still sell you the solution. You know, I see all these commercials for brand new products on TV, and some of them appear to be drugs to correct problems caused by earlier drugs like vaccines that have to deal with how your immune system has gone out of whack. It's become too aggressive. And, you know, there's one doctor, Dr. Ronald Klatz, who we've had on the show before, and he thinks what I'm dealing with may be a vaccine adverse reaction. So we're looking into that.
In the past, there was a way to immunize yourself that was intelligent, and that was to scratch your skin and place an infectious material on your skin, but your skin would be the immune barrier. You wouldn't have to have these errant proteins infused into your bloodstream. You know, the old TB, tuberculosis or smallpox, you know, where you got to scratch on the skin.
I remember those.
You know, that was the safest way to be, quote, immunized. Of course, there is an even safer way. That's that you simply pet or be in the space of that creature that has that pathogen. But the pathogens on the exterior of that animal are now dead or dying. They cannot hurt you, but your body can at least produce an antibody based on that dead or dying form without any risk of having that form multiply in you.
Well, I'm not sure how well that works because the pathogens can continue to reproduce even on a dead life form as long as the food supply is still there. Now, in the case of a virus, death is not instantaneous. It takes a while for everything in the life form to be truly dead, and that means there's still going to be cells capable of reproducing viruses. So I would be very cautious about that last one.
Well, you know, that's the nonsense that the sophistry is given to you. Once that organism is outside its shield of fat, it's vulnerable to the light, the oxygen, the cosmic energy. And it's so small, it's like if I take you out in the desert and I tie you down, since you have enough mass, you can survive about 3 days.
Yes.
But when you get down to a bacterium or smaller, the mass is so limited that the lifespan of that thing or survival is much shorter. It's in fractions of a second in some cases.
All right, Tom, we got to let you go here. We got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We got another caller on the line, Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I'd like to talk about vaccinations.
Okay.
I've heard a couple of other people talk about them. I'm the poster boy for such a thing. Seeing as my MMR almost killed me, my older brother's autistic, and what's that? Jesus, it's been so long now, I can't even remember. His brain doesn't produce something. Manic depressive, right?
Yes.
Well, the autism it didn't show up until about 3 days after he was vaccinated. Anyway, so some of the ingredients in these vaccinations, I mean, formaldehyde, aluminum salt, thimerosal, chicken egg protein.
Yes.
There's one, that's the flu vaccination, sugar, thimerosal. There's another different.
Isn't it interesting? They were supposed to stop using thimerosal, and yet they're still getting exceptions, and they're using different mercury-based preservatives to get around the ban, but the mercury is still there.
Yeah, and of course, mercury is a neurotoxin, so is aluminum.
Yes. Yes.
What's another one? Chicken embryo cell culture. Fetal bovine serum.
Yes.
Glutamate. MSG. MSG is, even when people eat it, a lot of people have different reactions to some people's high blood pressure.
It'll give me a migraine. It'll give me a migraine.
Yeah, it makes my nose water and all that jazz.
Yes.
But what MSG actually does to the brain is it causes your neurons to fire rapidly and in succession until they just burn out and die.
I think you're confusing MSG with aspartame. Aspartame is an excitotoxin.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You know what? You're right. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm sitting here looking at a list of all this other stuff they put in this.
Yeah, well, one of the bad things that monosodium glutamate does, I mean, it's sold as a flavor enhancer when it's used outside the body, but what it really does is it disrupts the signal in your body that says, I've had enough to eat. And this is why food manufacturers love monosodium glutamate, and they put it in processed foods under a wide variety of names like autolyzed yeast extract and various other things, because they know people are trying to avoid it, but they want to put it in there because if you eat it, you'll eat more of their product. You'll go back to the store sooner and buy more of their product, and they make more money. So in a nation where we already have an obesity epidemic, our food manufacturers are putting chemicals in the food to make us eat more.
The actual real food manufacturers aren't doing that, though, which would be the farmers.
Yes.
Right?
Well,
so
you
we're
have
talking
to
about
be
processed
careful
food.
because, you know, even in the supermarket, they'll spray the produce that's in there in the produce section. They'll spray it with monosodium glutamate because it also acts as a preservative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, at that point, any produce that I bring home ends up in the sink.
Yes.
And in cold water with soap, a surfactant.
Yes.
You know, that's all I'm using it for. I'm not trying to, you know, have a bubble bath or anything. It's a surfactant, so it reduces the surface tension on the produce, so anything that's on there comes off easier. And of course, just a little bit of bleach, which is sodium hypersodium chloride.
Yes.
So I mean, I know what I'm doing, and then of course I rinse it off. Our water is treated with chlorine anyway, or drinking water. Most people's drinking water is treated with chlorine, and it'll evaporate off, you know, after a while. The chlorine, that is.
Yes.
So probably the best thing to do if you drink tap water like I do is I use one of those Brita things, and by the time I drink it, there's probably
pour the water
no
back
chlorine
and
in it
forth
whatsoever.
between a couple of glasses to aerate it, and that'll take the chlorine out.
Yeah, and that's actually recommended if you have plants and all that sort of jazz, right?
Yes.
Because plants don't like chlorine in the water.
No, they really don't.
Their growth. No. So all this stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to scare anybody, and I'm not trying to say I'm down with vaccinations. I'm just saying that pharmaceutical companies really don't care about a person's health. They care about what's inside their pocketbook. And the easier they can get to that.
The whole medical industrial complex wants you to be sick. Their business model needs you to be chronically ill so that they can continue to sell you treatments.
Yeah. And of course, let's go back to 1971 when hospitalization and the whole medical industry in the United States used to be nonprofit.
Yes.
I actually should say that Nixon thing that he did a lot of bad stuff
the Health Maintenance Organization Act, which he did for his friends over at Kaiser.
Yeah, and even up here in Canada, I mean, we have socialized medicine. It's okay. It's not great. There are long waiting lists, and of course, right now people are dying because they can't have certain operations or the treatment that they want to, that they should have. And of course, when they die, it's going to be for coronavirus, right? COVID-19.
Yeah.
It's not going to be actually what they died from. So, you get into this nonsense, and it's all big one cover-up. It's what it is.
Yes.
They're in so deep. They're in for a penny, so now they're in for a pound. They can't backtrack. And it's sad.
Yes.
It's really sad. And like people my age, and I'm not quite as old as you are, but we don't really tend to suffer from this as much, but the kids, they're going to suffer, and they're suffering. And it's not just, you know, this nonsense here. I mean, it's education and everything else, like Layla was saying. They just want, you know, I mean, this has been going on for generations now. They just want, you know, these useless idiots or useful idiots. You know, like George Carlin said, they're just smart enough to pull the levers, but they're not smart enough to start asking questions. And that's what's sad, and you can see it in the children.
Well, that was the guiding
really
philosophy of the Carnegie Educational Foundation, where he thought that the non-wealthy should only have enough education to do their jobs and fill out the paperwork, but not trouble their little minds with anything more advanced. Same thing the plantation owners had for their slaves in the Deep South. You know, don't teach them to read, don't fill up their head with a bunch of ideas, just teach them how to do their jobs.
Sound familiar, eh?
Yep.
It's all slavery. I mean, people just, there is no color to it. There is no race. There's no gender. There's no religion.
And 40 for them.
Everyone. Yeah, it's right there.
Yes.
Anyway, Mike, I appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you another day. You have a good one.
All right. Thanks an awful lot, Al. We're going to switch over to Mary in New York City. Hello, Mary. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
She dropped.
She dropped. All right. Let's switch over to Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today? Is Andy there?
Are you there?
Ah, there we are. There we are. The gremlins are attacking our phone lines again. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, no, listen, you had a young lady call in a little earlier. She was asking about why the flag was missing behind the podiums and stuff at this, whatever you call that thing.
The debates, the debacle.
It was, yeah. So I'm not saying this is the reason, but we got to remember on March 13th, 2020, they declared a state of emergency and then handed the keys to the country over to FEMA. And that state of emergency wasn't reviewable for 6 months. And here we are in September, that's 6 months. So right around September 11th was the 6 months. And so nobody reviewed it, and we haven't heard anything about it changing. So we're still in a state of emergency and declared it. There's another emergency thing they declared too shortly right after that. But I just thought that might have something to do with it because there's no longer a federal government running this thing. It's under the control of FEMA. And I mean,
well, you know, the reality is that our country is in several states of emergency, many of them inherited from one president to the next, going back to Franklin Roosevelt. And the presidents love these states of emergencies because it accrues to the Oval Office additional power and authority that normally would rest with the legislature and the judicial.
It is interesting, though, Mike, that they did put the Declaration of Independence behind them. And
yeah.
Those very words that they showed. So, I mean, what was that? Was that subliminal, or did they just goof up?
Well, I think somebody just thought it would be cool to have the Declaration of Independence back there and didn't really realize that they had prominently, you know, centered that one comment about the right to alter or abolish a government that's gone wrong. I thought it was great. I was laughing when I saw that.
Hey, so I'm going off everything you're saying. I didn't watch the darn thing. I'm actually trying to work myself up to watching it because I'm hearing that it was pretty hilarious if you wanted to watch a comedy show. But
well, I don't know that it was all that funny or even entertaining. And after a while, it got rather tedious to watch. And I'll be very honest, I didn't make it all the way through.
Well, Mike, this is just the state of our country right now. They got us so dumbed down, and not all of us, but those that call in and listen to RBN, we're not dumbed down that much, but we still are dumbed down. Give yourself a little credit there. But most of these people out here, they're surface people. They're people who just watch the TV, get their stuff from the TV, and they go by what the TV says. And they trust their government. That was, you know, it's the worst.
Not as much as they used to. I mean, recent polls are showing trust in the media is, you know, down in the basement. Trust in the government is not far behind. And I think a lot of people don't voice their doubts and their concerns out of a sense of politeness or patriotism. But there's definitely a growing sense of not being able to trust either the corporate media or the government. And at some point, we're going to see it boil over into the light.
Which makes me that they're going to have to either turn this thing up or try to walk it back somehow, because people are giving us time to wake up. And these people wearing the mask, they're just doing it to get along now. If they have to wear it, they wouldn't wear it. And I don't wear a mask. And I even shake hands to people who aren't wearing masks. Hey, dude, thanks for not wearing a mask. I mean, simple things like that. Just, I don't know. We're in a state of an emergency for real, though, because these people are trying to pull one over on us, and I'll just let it go at that, Mike. You have a great day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Tom in Florida, are you there?
You hear me?
Now I can hear you. You're on the air.
Yeah, good day to you, Mike. Listen, Mike, first off, I want to tell you something that's going on with this debate. Back in the old days, they would have had a duel. You remember the Burr case when he shot, was it Hamilton?
Yes.
Bumbling Biden called Trump a racist. He told him to shut up. He's the president of the United States, tells him to shut up. He's a clown. He's a liar. He's a fool. All this. And if Donald Trump would have said any one word of that, Mike, these liberal swine media would go on in Spain. But since Biden got to call Trump every filthy name in this debate, it's okay. And these young kids are watching the debate. These college kids are like, oh, it's okay to tell the president of the United States to shut up. Biden should
they've already got T-shirts out on that one.
Yes. Well, if that would have happened back in the 1800s, Trump would have had told him, let's go have a duel. They would have dueled out, and Trump would have probably blew him right in shot his brains out. Even you don't have no brains. I don't know what would happen. But getting back to what I really want to talk about, Mike, and about the debate. You're hearing about one police union will back Biden. Law and order, he wouldn't even mention the word. He couldn't even look you straight up. He had to duck his head down. He was keeping his head drooped down. And he wouldn't, when Trump was sitting on law and order, do you think that either one of these ABC, CBS, or NBC would even give Donald Trump any kind of credit for that?
Nope.
No, Mike. No way. It's all conspiracy. And Trump was smart, but he'd have said, you know what, Joe? If I had my way, I'd go back in 1800, I'd take you in a duel. I'd duel it out with you. I'd put you in a duel. Either we're going to both go or one of us is going to go. But, Mike, here's what I also want to bring out. This guy, Mitch, that calls in, he likes to fact check, right? He's a fact checker, right?
Okay, Tom, no personal attacks, all right?
Okay, but listen, I got a name I like somebody to research. I'm going to do it myself. I just heard this on the news just now, about an hour ago. The lady's name is Kate Bedingfield. She's Joe Biden's deputy communications director. Okay. Yes. They were talking about Brad Parscale. Now he's he's in the hospital. They Baker Acted him. He's in the Baker Act. The guy that was doing Trump's campaign in 2016.
Yes.
A little bit this year, but he is having issues with his wife or something. So they brought out the fact that this Republican host on the radio down here brought out, well, who's running Joe Biden's campaign? And they found out her name is Kate Bedingfield. A lot of these schmucks like Joey Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, that's not their real names. They're all Zionists, and they change their names. They love to change their names. Can you explain why they love to change their names so much? And this Kate Bedingfield is a big-time New Yorker or New Jerseyan, big-time. She's running Biden's campaign, and she's basically telling Biden the way you beat Trump is by the race card. They have to keep the black vote at around 89% to win the popular vote in the election. If they can keep the black vote around 90, Trump's going to have a hard time with the Electoral College. If Trump grabs 15% of the black vote, he wins the election. Did you hear about that, Mike?
Yeah, I heard about that, and I keep hearing that a lot of blacks are going to vote for Donald Trump. Maybe they're tired of the Democratic plantation.
Well, Mike, every time I see a black person, I ask them if they've seen the movie, the documentary Uncle Tom, and they haven't. Ones that do so, oh, I love that. So now they're on the fence. They don't know what to do. And, this Kate Bedingfield, she's a Zod agent, but she's letting it basically out that the Democrats' only way to grab the White House with Biden, with his idiocracies, is getting as many black turnout as they can.
Yes.
Like remember, Biden was losing his butt off until he got the South Carolina mic. And if Pocahontas would have dropped out, Bernie would have got the nomination.
Yes.
Bernie had the nomination until Pocahontas wouldn't drop out in a race. So they cut it Pocahontas and Biden.
All right. Well, Tom, I'm sorry to cut you off. I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words. And welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. We're going to go back to the phones to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Well, real quick, Tom brought up Whoopi Goldberg. Tom, what's the matter? You don't like Guinan from Star Trek: The Next Generation? Because I thought, well, you know, I actually liked her character. It was very mysterious. You really didn't know who she was. I know you like Star Trek. I thought her character was actually kind of cool. Especially, remember when she went up against Q? Remember John Delancey as Q? He was a cool guy. All right, Mike, moving on to serious things. On Nagorno-Karabakh, all your answers are wrong. Like, that Tajikistan, that's their territory. Like, that's a separatist area in Tajikistan. They have a right to keep the integrity of the country.
Well, they've declared themselves an independent republic, but they're still not recognized by the other countries on Earth.
Exactly. And they're a separatist group. So we don't know who started this. But, you know, this is turned into a Christian versus Muslim thing, which it is, but you're blaming one group. Nobody knows nobody knows who started this, but it's probably it's a separatist, because, you know, Mike, it's recognized, like you said, by the UN. That's Kazakhstan's country. You got a separatist group in a province that's Armenia, is under Armenian control, basically. So you got that buffer zone. I think you saw the map. But, you know, Mike, a lot of your listeners don't know this. Russia sells weapons to both countries.
Are you sure Tajikistan, or are you thinking Azerbaijan?
Oh, sorry. What did I say? Azerbaijan. Sorry.
Tajikistan.
Yeah. I get confused with the Caucasus sometimes.
I need a globe back here, but they keep changing the lines on it all the time.
Well, you know, Mike, like, Russia sells weapons to both countries, Azerbaijan and Armenia, and they sold weapons to, high-tech weapons to Azerbaijan, and then not too long after that, to even out because, you know, you don't want to sell more high-tech weapons to one country than another. You want to have it kind of evened out. So Armenia,
unless it's Israel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But Mike, you know, Israel. I don't know if you guys heard of the Hermes. It's like a drone that got shot down the other day, actually. But Mike, you got to check out something called the Harpy. You ever heard of the Harpy?
Not sure what the context is.
It's a tactical drone that basically flies around and it hits the target. It's a flying missile.
It's a suicide drone.
It's a something tactical munition, and that's a high tech weapon. I mean, that weapon's actually pretty potent. You know, they have that. They got T-90s. They got MiG-29s. But if you look at all the armament both sides have, it's basically T-72s, T-80s, and there's a lot of misinformation going on. I think you saw that S-300 gets knocked out. I know we're not doing this show, but people need to do some information on the region. I'll call in tomorrow.
All right, call in tomorrow, and my apology to the callers who did not get on the air today, and I know we had lots of calls today. Please try again tomorrow. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I understand he's going to have Steve Elkins on in his second hour, and lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of what really happened out. Excuse me. Please donate. I need Kleenex, and we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.